What's up, guys? Welcome back to the doctor's office. I am Dr. K. Ray Knight, here to give you proper diagnosis and prognosis and everything comics and comic book characters. And it is my birthday. Yay! I'm not gonna tell y'all how old I am. Don't even ask me. Anyway, so I wanted to do a birthday video. I think like 2 years ago I did a birthday video, and it was I think before my birthday it was The Batman Who Laughs, and then on my birthday I did Kingdom Come, and I think like sometime later on in the same month I did Ruins from Marvel. So I kind of wanted to do a big breakdown video again for my birthday, because you know, I know it's been a while since I've done like a big breakdown video, and I kind of wanted to do that. So the big breakdown video that I'm going to do, as you guys know, I have been covering the Witchblade comic books from the Witchblade reboot, which is actually really fucking amazing. If you have not been reading it or watching the videos, please do so, because the fucking, like, the books are absolutely fabulous. And I don't know what y'all be doing, because my girl Sarah out here doing things. Now, we're not going to talk about that last issue, but so I do want to break down Witchblade, but not necessarily the comic book story, just the wielders, because the wielders are the ones that I love so much. So I have like watched the anime, I've read the manga, and I saw that live action that came on TNT. It wasn't terrible. I would put it kind of just a little bit below Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like kind of between Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. So that's kind of where it sits for me. Anyway, so there are a lot of Witchblade users, okay? All of the Witchblade users except for 3 are female. Why is that? So the Witchblade itself, in the Top Cow universe, there are 13 artifacts. The Witchblade is one of them. So the Witchblade is the child of the Angelus and the Darkness, who are like basically the ruling forces of the Top Count universe. So it's their baby, like, so it's kind of just like a balance. But the thing with it is that it is male, so it requires a female host. And so, you know, in order for it to be kind of like fully used. Now, the exceptions to that are Kenneth Iron's Psycho Ass. And when I tell you he did not have it that long, he didn't have it that long. And as you saw in the reboot, he took it from her after he took her arm, and he needed the heart of the angel that was sitting there, who's part of the Angelus, in order to even be able to use it. Pish posh. The other one would be Ian Nottingham, who used it after Sarah gave it to him willingly, and he was able to siphon off magic, he's able to siphon magic or mystical energy, so that's how he was able to use it. And he gave into the darkness of it really, really quick, unlike her, so he was able to use it to its like full potential, up until the part where she took it back and ended up getting the blood sword, I believe. And she took that too. No, there was another sword called Excalibur. He tried to get that. She took that. But there is a 13th another of the 13 artifacts called the blood sword. I'm pretty sure is what it's called. And he has that. So he's the wielder of that. He used it, but again, not long. And then Kenneth Iron's son Gerard in the future also used it. Believe me when I say, not for very long. So, wielder, female. Witchblade, male. That's how that goes. So I just want to talk about a few of the wielders, probably just going to go in chronological order, and talk about the wielders of the Witchblade. So we start in prehistoric times with a cave woman named Una, we'll say Una, and she had a pet saber-toothed tiger, and The Witchblade crash landed on Earth, and she thought it was a meteor or just like a giant space rock, whatever the fuck she thought it was at that time. She went to go investigate. When she went to go investigate, she discovered that it was a living organism and not just a fucking rock, and it bonded with her. And so that is the beginning of the Witchblade being on Earth, and it bonded with this woman. And she struggled like with like, you know, her own free will as a person at the time with whatever the Witchblade was trying to do. Now, with the power of the Witchblade, using it to its full potential gives you like armor, right? So the more danger there is, the more armor you receive. Not a lot of danger, not a lot of armor. So I'm going to just kind of bet she probably didn't have a shit ton of armor if she was in this pastime. It doesn't really say what she would have been going up against, but she was the first wielder. Now on TikTok, you guys heard me talk about this. I think I also posted a short about her. So in Egypt, 1000 BC, we have Princess Raquel. Princess Raquel is the second user of the Witchblade, and she got it when her husband was cheating on her with Bastet. And she ended up fighting against Bastet with the Witchblade. Now, she does end up defeating Bastet, but pisses her husband off. Mind you, he's cheating on her. And so pisses her husband off, and he kills her while she has the Witchblade on. She is semi-covered in armor, but not enough to stop him from killing her. So I guess it kind of just was like the level of threat he presented probably didn't, like, he probably went to like hug her or some shit, as the armor and like the armor coverage was just not a lot. She had more armor on when she was going up against Bastet. And that's because Bastet is a goddess, obviously. Now, the third wielder of the Witchblade, her name is Lysandra, and she is 7th century Greece. And she was a peasant girl, and she like had this goal of climbing Mount Olympus so that she could speak with the gods, the Olympian gods, right? So like Zeus and all of them. She does end up climbing Mount Olympus, but instead of finding the gods there, she finds the glove. The glove calls out her name. She's like, oh shit, that's supposed to be mine. She puts it on and thus becomes the third wielder of the Witchblade. Now, what I do kind of like about these stories is that, you know, they give you a glimpse into who these people were, or who these women were, but it doesn't give you like a shit ton, because there's not a shit ton, right? I kind of wish they would go back and give more information to them, because I just think that that would be really, really fucking fun, because they did have one point where they gave the history of the Witchblade, so that's where all of these users came from. But it's kind of just like they had like maybe a page or like half a page or something like that in which their information was being given, right? I would like more, because these stories sound very interesting. Now, another wielder that was kind of just revealed and not necessarily expanded on was Cleopatra. Fire. I like that. I'll tell you why I like that in a minute. So Cleopatra would have been after Lysandra, so she would have been 4. Number 5 would have been Scathach. I'm gonna put her name down here because it's Scottish, so I don't actually know how to pronounce it. So she is the patron goddess of Red Sonja, and it's revealed that she was a Witchblade user or wielder during the Witchblade Red Sonja crossover. So I love that also, actually, like the crossovers where it's presenting new wielders and shit like that. That is really fun, and that contributes to the story, and I really, really want them to do more of that as well. Now, these next two happened at the same time, but the actual first wielder of it would be Nyssa. So this is 2nd century, and Nyssa is this is the wielder at this point in time. She meets up with Red Sonja, and they actually end up fighting against an angel named Ragniel. don't quote me. I'll just, whatever names I forget, I will just put them at the bottom. Anyway, they fight against him and he kills Nissa. Now, because she gets impaled, actually. So after she gets impaled and she's literally like dying there, temporary use of the Witchblade goes to Red Sonja. So Red Sonja ends up actually using it, and she defeats Ragniel and then goes to heal Nissa, and the Witchblade goes back to Nissa. However, during her fight with Tama, she gets killed then when she's ran through with a sword, and then it has to find a new user. Now, simultaneously, while Red Sonja was the Witchblade wielder, she hid the knowledge of her sword that she carried from Nissa, so that like she made a deal with the Witchblade before it transferred back to Nissa to hide the sword from Nissa, so that when Sarah Pazzini like was accessing the memories of the other Witchblade users, she would be able to find what she needed in that moment. She didn't want Nissa to move it. I think that is really fun having I think that's really fun having those crossovers. So with that crossover with Nissa and Red Sonja, and the both of them wielding the Witchblade in the same century, I thought that was really fun and really cool. Deep territory. So the next wielder after Nissa and Red Sonja is in 229 AD with a woman named Samantha. Now, Samantha was in a barbarian village where the Romans had attacked them, right? And so her whole entire village was attacked, and she ended up being sold into slavery. So she was trying to get in contact with her family by smuggling letters, but she actually ended up getting arrested and thrown in a dungeon. At some point in time, she was able to escape from there, and she wandered around and came across these druids. Well, the druids gave her the Witchblade in hopes that she would be able to use it to destroy the Romans. That was her plan all along at this point in time. So she goes back to Rome, and she kills these Roman guards who are trying to sexually assault this young girl. And she, fights several of them after she kills some of them, but she allows herself to be arrested and refuses to use the Witchblade in self-defense because they would have branded her a witch. However, she decided to use it anyway. They sentenced her to death via execution, of course, they sentenced her to execution, and she decided to use the Witchblade one more time in order to kill all of them, kill all of the Romans, and then after that she was just traveling, killing Romans. Amen. Do what you gotta do, girl. Do what you do when you poppin', right? I like her a lot. This next one is a bit complicated, still interesting though. So the next one is Zara, Queen of Bones, 359 AD. She was a part demon and a conqueror, and she actually ended up defeating Gideon, and she came in contact with Merlin. Merlin made a deal with her, but then ended up betraying her. Classic fucking Merlin. And she ended up going up against someone else by the name of Butcher Knight, and he's a demon gargoyle that is bound to Lancelot. So we're dealing with Knights of the Round Table here. That is super interesting, and I would need more of that. I would love an entire series on Zara in particular, because that sounds very interesting and it sounds very fun. Now, this next one occurs in 722 AD in China, ancient China. There is a myth about a woman who carried a gauntlet that looked like a dragon. And she was so incredibly powerful, and everybody was so afraid of her. And she actually single-handedly defeated the Mongols and prevented them from completing their invasion of the Great Wall of China. And her name was Longlin Yao. Now, she's supposed to be a myth, right? And I think that that's absolutely fucking cool. And again, I really enjoy where they kind of just, they don't keep the Witchblade in one place. However, how does it end up in these places? Because the last time, of course, it was definitely not in China. It was in England. So how is it going from England to China? You know what I'm saying? There's kind of just like that big gap, and it's like there's no kind of like explanation in like how it gets from point A to point B. Now this next one is actually really very interesting. Her name is Katarina Godliff, and Katarina is a thief, an adventurer, and a treasure hunter. And one night she runs up this huge fucking tab at a pub. And so because she obviously doesn't have the money to pay for this gigantically huge tab, she's forced to work the tab off. And so she's shoveling manure and she ends up finding the Witchblade. Now, so we went from England to China and we're back to England because she is in like England again. So, or she is in England. This is the 1100s. So we're back in England. She finds the Witchblade. When she finds the Witchblade, there is a war that is happening between the darkness and medieval spawn. Crossover time. Do you hear me? So as there is that fight happening, the Witchblade activates, bonds to her, and she goes and she helps medieval spawn fight against the darkness forces, right? To like get rid of them. After they have like their fighting, everything like that, her friend also, I think her friend's name is Stalker or something like that. They team up after they have defeated the armies that are there and stopped that part of the war. Medieval spawn is just like, hey, by the way, in like another life, you and I are lovers. And she laughs and it's just like, ha, cool story. And she leaves. Her and her friend just kind of leave. And their whole entire thing is that they're going to go fight darkness forces wherever they may be. She actually, I think, I want to say, they're pretty much saying like 1,000 or so. So 1,000 plus years later, she meets Sarah Pazzini, who is who has the Witchblade. And they are trying to defeat another person. Now, before she meets Sarah Pazzini, she does disappear. The Witchblade abandons her in 1178, and she becomes sheriff of the Fairyland. And she ends up meeting Sarah, who comes to the Fairyland for something else. And while Sarah is in a fight, part of the Witchblade does go back to Katarina for her to team up with Sarah, basically to protect Fairyland. And after that is over, she heals one of the girls who got injured and gives the rest of the Witchblade back to Sarah so that it is one entity again. Now, the next user, I did do a video on at one point. Her name is Annabella Altavista. And she was raised basically like in this religious order. You could call them monks if you want. They're called the Emanuele. And they were raising her, basically prepping her to wield the hand of God. And they kept talking to her about this thing that she would be able to wield someday called the hand of God. Now, when she turned 18, she started kind of questioning everything because the hand of God is not mentioned in the Bible, and especially not in the way that they were describing it. And she actually ended up being attacked by her own members, and like some of the other members who thought that the hand of God was like dangerous anyway, also got attacked by their own members because they wanted to wield the weapon, because they kept considering it the hand of God. And so after that, there was a rival religious group called the Swamians who were also looking for her as well as the hand of God. And she finally just decided to put it on, and basically it was the Witchblade. That's what they were calling the hand of God. It wasn't a bracelet at the time, like how it usually shows up. It was full on gauntlet anyway. So all she had to do was put it on, and so she did, and she destroyed or killed the Swamians and became like the people's savior. And so this was 1213 in Sicily, and she was one of my favorites. There was a guy that she liked, and turned out that he was a dick, and it's just, there was all kinds of stuff going on for her, and she really honestly kind of just wanted to leave, because when she discovered that she felt like they were lying to her anyway. So when she figured out that they were, and that the hand of God was actually just a fucking weapon, she was just like, oh hell no. what like, what are y'all doing? When they tried to put it on, it of course didn't work, and I think it didn't work, and it killed a couple of them, because a couple of them tried. But because the Witchblade is male and needs a female host, it was not able to work for them at all. Now this next one, so this next one is Matea. She 1288, the Yucatan, and she came across the Witchblade, but she was confused as to why. She wasn't really sure why the Witchblade chose her. She didn't even actually know that that's what it was called, but she was just confused as to why this piece of thing had chosen her. So she started trying to figure it out, and she started doing rituals in order to try to figure it out. She did a human sacrifice and started to pray, and it seemed like her prayers were being answered, but it wasn't the serpent god that she was looking for. It actually turned out to be the Angelus, who is the mother of the Witchblade. And she came to Matea so that she could try to tip the balance of the Witchblade so that the darkness could be defeated. Now, it says shortly after she put on the Witchblade, all of her people disappeared. So it doesn't say like who she may have been fighting or anything like that, but I do believe that she was part of one of the Aztec civilizations that just like disappeared. And they're basically saying that after she, actually put the Witchblade on, they disappeared. So she could have made them disappear. The Angelus could have made them disappear, because the Angelus is known for fucking just taking people. Or she killed them. I don't know. All right, the next ones do happen at the same time. 14th century Arabia. It's Amani and Amali. Now they are two sisters, and they each ended up getting half of the Witchblade. Listen, the Witchblade, again, if you just in case you forgot, is the darkness and the Angelus. So shadow and light. One sister had given into the darkness part of the Witchblade. The other had given into the Angelus part of the Witchblade. So they were going to continuously be at odds with each other. One, because the Witchblade's power is split into its actual two halves. And when it's split like that, it's going to be at odds with the other half, because the Angelus and the darkness fucking fight all the time. So if they're not balanced out, they're going to fight each other. At that point in time, they probably ended up killing each other, which is how the Witchblade ends up going elsewhere. Now, the Witchblade then ends up in 1429 in Paris, France. Does that date sound familiar to anybody? Joan of Arc is our wielder, 1429 to 1431. So when she was telling everybody that she was hearing voices from God and things like that, she was not actually hearing them from God, but she was hearing them from the Witchblade. And she used the Witchblade like in the Siege of Orleans, and when she and then of course she used the Witchblade to help France in their war that they had with England. And when she was burned at the stake, May 30th, 1431, everybody thought that was the end of her. However, she is actually not the one who was burned at the stake. The one who was supposedly burned at the stake is Gilles, and he was her lover or something like that. And she appeared 5 years later in France, and she had changed her name to Joan of Armois, and wandered the world. Basically, he had made a blood pact to at the cost of his life, obviously, to protect Joan and, you know, obviously keep her alive. So she kind of just wandered Earth up until the point where she just disappeared. Not died or anything like that. She just disappeared along with the Witchblade. However, the Witchblade in 1510 ends up in Timbuktu to my absolutely favorite fucking wielder, Queen Kajani. Now, Queen Kajani, as many have heard me talk about this woman, Queen Kajani was a Witchblade holder, 1510, Timbuktu. And my girl was out here commanding armies without needing to. She demanded and, you know, got all of that respect and that fear without an army. And she was married to the king of Timbuktu, who he was feared by everybody, but he wasn't feared by everybody because of him. He was feared by everybody because of her, because not only was she just like the wielder of the Witchblade, she was also a strategist. And she was also like, she had the respect of the women because they, you know, they would go to her and be like, you know, I need your help. And she would do what she could for them. And then, of course, the men were absolutely just fucking terrified of her because she was wearing this weapon and she knew how to use it. Did she know what it was? Absolutely not. Did she know how to use it? Hell fucking yeah. She's like one of the best ones. And like, she was the power behind the scenes. So her husband was, you know, the face of the wealth, but she was the power behind the scenes. So when the city actually ended up getting attacked, they didn't need an army to defend it because Queen Kajani was just like, oh, you stepped in my yard? That's crazy. Oh, y'all gotta go to the upper room with all of you. Romeo must die. Get out. So I absolutely love her, and then she's beautiful. Yes, Isabella. And then we go into 1632 Japan with Shiori-sama. Right? All right, so she was married to Nabushiki, and a man, they had their own little kingdom, and a man named Tsunemoto had come and killed Nabushiki and exiled Shiori to just not elsewhere. So she ended up being kicked out of her own kingdom. Now, as she's kind of just wandering through Japan, she decides that she wants to get her kingdom back, period. And she finds these female warriors along the way. And as they are, you know, training and things like that and traveling, they go to Mount Kurama and she ends up finding the Witchblade. Bad idea for everybody else. Because my girl walked through them gates of her old kingdom, killed that man, and took her shit back. Period. That's what you do. Her design is so freaking cool. And I really like how they kind of leaned into that. And I do like how she is the user in Japan and then it transfers to another user in Japan, in the 17th century also, maybe 18th century, but I'm pretty sure 17th century, and her name is Yuki-chan. Now, Yuki-chan became the wielder of the Witchblade 3 years later, and she is the direct successor from Shiori. So she actually was one of the warriors that Shiori was with, and I want to say Shiori had a baby, and the Witchblade ended up going to Yuki-chan, and the wielder of the blood sword actually came to get the Witchblade as ordered by her master, and she went up against Yuki-chan, and Yuka beat her ass because she was better, right? And so she did live by this code of do not let your enemies live to exact vengeance later. So she killed the girl and then took her sword. That's what you do. That's how you do it. Some people need to learn that lesson. You know, don't let your enemies fucking live to beat your ass the next day. Baby. Now, the next wielder. So we've gone to Japan. We're back in France. We are in 17th century France. And the Witchblade has come to a woman named Roxane Larocque. Now, Roxane is pretending to be a man so that she could be part of the Musketeers. right? Right. Now, she is part of the Musketeers, and the Musketeers at this time are feared, and she's, you know, she's actually pretty good. Now, when someone tries to, and the reason that she is pretty good is because she already has the Witchblade. So she becomes a feared musketeer also because she has the Witchblade. And so when somebody tries to assassinate King Louis XIV, she comes in to defeat them with the Witchblade. So she's already got some good swordsman skills, but she also has power with the Witchblade. During the fight, her hat falls off and it's revealed that she's a woman, and everybody's just like, oh my God, kind of like a Mulan moment. And, you know, she protects him and everything, but because her gender had been revealed, she left the Musketeers, and she kind of just went into the shadows, but she still fought criminals, right, and people who were needing help. So she definitely went into vigilante mode on her own with the Witchblade still. Now my next girl, 1718, is Anne Bonny, and she is in the Caribbean, and she's a pirate. Pirates of the Caribbean. And she meets up with a pirate named Calico Jack Rackham, and he invites her to be a pirate, even though women were not allowed to be pirates. But she was not an ordinary woman in any way, shape, or form. She was actually really good. Like, she's really tough, and she could fight because she would go against the strongest man in any area, defeat them, and they would just be embarrassed. So they decided that they were going to steal a map from Blackbeard. They steal the map, and they're going to look for a treasure on this island. Treasure Island. Anyway, and they get to the island. The treasure that is there on the island is the Witchblade. Now, they are attacked by Blackbeard, and she does use the Witchblade to protect everybody. And they end up escaping him. After they escape, he finds them again and he attacks them again, and she uses the Witchblade on one hand and a gun in the other, and she's just defeating everybody there is, including Blackbeard. Now, later on, they did end up getting captured, and they were going to be sentenced to death, which of course is them hanging at the gallows. And she reveals that she is pregnant. So instead of her being killed, they sent her to prison. Whether or not she was actually pregnant is still to be determined. She could have just been using that as a convenient excuse. She was able to, however, escape prison, and rumor has it that she moved to the Carolinas and started a new life. So she was a badass too. I like her. I like her design as well. She is one I would want to see. I would want to see a series on, because something tells me that in between the stuff happening between them and Blackbeard, between the attack and then like them being sentenced to death, that they had a few other adventures also. I would like to see like something like that as well. One of the things that I like that it does when it has Witchblade wielders is use ones that are considered to be myths, like they're just legends, and there's not really any proof that they've existed. So there's one 1876 in the US, and her name was Enola. Now, they're basically saying that Enola was a myth and should be treated as such. So we're talking about 1876. This was in the Wild Wild West, where everybody was taught, everybody gunslinging and all kinds of other stuff. And they talk about like the lawless men and everything like that. But there was nothing written about a woman who was probably the best gunslinger in the United States. And in the United States. And it's almost just like, I wonder why. It was because she was a woman, obviously. So she was a part Arapaho. I want to say that's how you say that. So Native American and white. And she wielded the Witchblade, and the hand that she wielded the Witchblade with is also the hand that she shoots with. So of course she is the best gunslinger that there is, and she's the most accurate. She has never lost in a duel. I wonder why not. I think that that's absolutely fucking amazing, and I would have loved to see something about that. Even if you just do kind of just like a spin-off of her in general, just like the way that you've done with the darkness at this point, because I know the darkness does have a story, but I feel like especially her, I think it's just like a small side story, miniseries, something like that would be really, really cool. Now the next three wielders don't have any information on them, but it's Florence Nightingale, Elizabeth Bronte, and Marie Curie. They don't have any information on them at all, but they were revealed to be Witchblade users at the time. After Elizabeth Bronte, so it's Florence Nightingale, Marie Curie, and Elizabeth Bronte. After Elizabeth is a woman named Bernadette, and this is about 1888. Bernadette was a waitress who wielded the Witchblade and was like, you know, basically doing the vigilante thing, but she was helping people or helping like helpless women and things like that. She ended up being killed by Dorian Gray. And then it ends up going to Paris in 1898. Now in 1898, it was Josephine Valmont who was in Paris. She was a common person, and she is of African descent, so she was a common person at the time, but she mingled with like the aristocrats and everything like that. It is unknown how she got the Witchblade or like where it went to, but they are very certain that Kenneth Irons was involved in that. And again, that is a story I would like to see. All right, so in like 1904, we had another wielder named Salifa Zaid. She found the Witchblade out in the desert, and it bonded with her for a time. And then later on, in like the late 19th century in Chicago, we have Letty Swan, who had actually ended up teaming up with the darkness user Theo Estagato and Magdalena Charlotte. Teamed up with the two of them while they were fighting someone, and she was that Witchblade wielder at the time. Then we go to 1942 in Russia for Tatsia Fedonova. There we go. That thing. She was defending the Road of Life for that 900-day siege in World War II. And 600,000 people died during that 900 days, except for her, who escaped with minor injuries. And that is because she was wielding the Witchblade. And because she was out there defending the shit out of it with the Witchblade. Listen, that's crazy. For 900 days, that is also something that I would like to see. Like, some of the Witchblade users have, you know, interesting histories, but it can stop like at certain spots, right? This one, a whole 900-day siege, and she's the only one walking out of there alive. I must know more, and I want to know what happened in the 900 days. Short story me, please. We're gonna skip Sarah Pazzini because she is the current Witchblade user, and we're gonna go to Miss Laura Croft. Now, this of course was a crossover because Laura Croft is also a Top Cow property. So this was a crossover between the two. Sarah was supposed to be destroying this deadly machine that was created by this villain called Weave. And she went up against the machine to try to destroy it. And there was like so much energy that got like packed up in the Witchblade that it actually incapacitated Sarah. So with Sarah being incapacitated, the Witchblade went over to Laura Croft and had her do it. Well, she was able to destroy the machine at the cost of her own life. So she actually ended up dying, and the Witchblade reverted back to Sarah. And when it reverted back to Sarah, Laura Croft actually ended up being brought back to life by the Guardian of the Underworld. So like that whole situation worked itself out. After that though, Sarah had suffered amnesia and was not really able to use the Witchblade, so it went to a woman named Kaylee. Now, while Sarah is suffering amnesia, I believe it said that she is the one married to Wolverine. Right. Your face is my face. So she's married to Wolverine, but she's suffering amnesia, so she doesn't even know that she's married to Wolverine, or that she's not supposed to be married to Wolverine. But Wolverine has a thing for Kaylee, and Kaylee ends up getting the Witchblade, and she actually ends up fighting Wolverine for a minute, up until like Wolverine and her have a moment, and then it reverts back to Sarah. Now, the next user is a woman named Danielle Baptiste, who is a ballet dancer. And when she saw it on Sarah, because on Sarah it comes off as just a bracelet, when she saw it on Sarah, she instantly knew what it was, because of course she'd been doing this research, because she kept having dreams about it. So because she kept having dreams about it and doing all this research, she was able to find kind of what it looks like. And again, it looks like a bracelet on Sarah. She actually ended up getting half of the Witchblade from Sarah, because Sarah wanted to give it. Well, she actually ended up getting the Witchblade from Sarah because Sarah wanted to give it away. However, the Witchblade recognized that Sarah was pregnant and reverted half of itself back to Sarah. So kind of like with Amali and Amani, where half is one, like one person has one half, one person has the other half. She got the darkness half. So her and Danielle ended up going up against each other a lot, up until it just reverted all the way back to Sarah. Now, going towards the future, there is a woman named Ivy Pizzini. Ivy Pizzini is Sarah's daughter. At this point in time, Sarah works for the federal government. She works for a level 42, or she runs level 42, which is like hypernatural and recover, like hypernatural situations or supernatural situations and recovery. And she decides, like, she has twins, Sean and Ivy. And so she decides to pass the Witchblade down to Ivy and teaches her how to control it. So future wielder will be Ivy. Now, in the year 2100, we have another future wielder. Her name is Selena Alice Lauren, and she was a former government agent who was tracking down serial killers. Like, her whole entire job was tracking down serial killers, and her job ended up actually making her go insane, and she disappeared for 6 months. Now, in 2100 NYC, or in 2100 New York City, which is where she is, there's no age, like there's no aging, no crime, no sickness, right? So basically pure utopia at this point. And again, she's a former government employee. After she had disappeared for 6 months, she came back. Basically, she was a porn star. And like that whole, it's like the whole entire situation was crazy, because she actually ended up getting arrested for something, and she ended up escaping jail. At this point in time, she's already a wielder of the Witchblade. Now, the detective that is on handling a crime, because there happens to be a crime that happens, he needs to call in an expert. The expert he needs to call in is Selena, because it's a serial killer. So of course, her whole entire expertise before all of the no crime or anything like that was serial killers. This definitely reminds me of Minority Report, and I kind of love it. So he calls her in, and she, like I said, is already a wielder of the Witchblade. She's had the Witchblade for a while at this point. She uses the Witchblade to find the killer, and basically all the people who had died were test subjects for like this aging serum or something like that, because they're trying to get people to age, and it's actually killing them. So whoever it was that they found, they're going after them. Well, she ends up seducing him, the detective, and between the sex and the Witchblade and the crime and all this stuff, he goes completely insane and he kills the criminal, and the girl disappears. Now, after he kills the criminal, he also himself. She ends up becoming a detective again, which is actually fucking wild. So it's like, did you do that on purpose? This is definitely something that I want to see, because again, it reminds me of Minority Report, and it sounds like it would be really, really fun to see this future storyline play all the way out, because there's clearly more things happening. And on top of it reminding me of Minority Report, it reminds me of the current Witchblade situation going on right now, where they were dealing with the sex trafficking. So like, that shit is cool as hell. And more, please. Thank you. All right, another future wielder is a girl named Debbie Santalisa. She was an abused girl who volunteered for a job as an experiment. The experiment, wearing the Witchblade. So she does wear the Witchblade, and she kind of just is in this room all the time, and they're trying to see what the power of the Witchblade actually does. Well, she is able to use the Witchblade to escape, and she runs into a woman named Akane, and Akane convinces her to fight the Witchblade's influence, and the Witchblade actually just ends up falling off of her arm, but Akane is the wielder that it chooses immediately after that. Now for Akane Nakiko, she does convince her to, you know, fight the power of the Witchblade so that it falls off Debbie, but she actually ends up being bonded with it. Now she is a telepathic cyborg, and she's also a detectives, and she's actually on the run for a murder that she didn't commit, and she uses the Witchblade to actually solve the murder so that she can clear her name. Now this is also something that I would like to see. I like these future stories because they seem to be really kind of different. So her rescuing somebody who was experimented on with the Witchblade, which means the Witchblade ended up being found somewhere. So them experimenting with the Witchblade and putting it on a girl, and it deciding that that girl is worthy, you know, wearing it, only for it to fall off of her arm after she refuses pieces of it, and then it attached itself to a psychic or telepathic cyborg detective on the run for murder. Cinema peak. All right, so this next one, her name is Persephone. Hers is far future, post-apocalypse, the Gorge Kingdom, and her father is Lord Gorge. Now, as long as she can remember, she has always had this pain in her arm. So she's trying to figure it out, you know, trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And she really never kind of like paid any attention to like what could be happening, because I think her arm is wrapped. So she goes down to the sewers. When she goes down to the sewers, she is pursued by somebody sent by her father named Tommy X9. He's basically like cyborg, android, something like that. So he pursues her in the sewer to, like, you know, make sure that she's cool. But they both realize that her father set them both up to be killed, actually. So I want to say that Tommy X9 is probably like her bodyguard or something like that was sent after her, and he set them up to be killed. However, when she has the pain shooting up in her arm again, and I think she kind of just like unwraps it, she realizes that she has the Witchblade on her arm, and she embraces the power of the Witchblade in its entirety, and her and Tommy X9 go and destroy the entire Gorge Kingdom. She said, "You fucking with me, Dad. I don't like that, and you gotta go." Now, the last one is also far future, post-apocalypse, where there are only two versions of civilization on Earth. There are people who are genetically enhanced, and then there are people who have cybernetic enhancements. Now, and so this one is Aphrodite 9. So, because they are kind of just like separated, Aphrodite 9 uses this as an opportunity to try to take over this world, being kind of just like a cybernetic being herself. However, she realizes that there are other Aphrodite models who are trying to do the same thing as her. Now, how she becomes a bearer of the Witchblade, the darkness shows up, which forces the Witchblade to show up. And they actually have to team up because there's a bunch of bullshit going on that require the darkness to be there. And because the darkness is there and is required to be there to stop whatever is happening, probably on behalf of on behalf of the Angelas, it's required for the darkness to be there. Because it is required for the darkness to be there, and the Witchblade shows up, and she has to team up with him in order for her to accomplish whatever it is that she's trying to accomplish, she becomes the last bearer of the Witchblade. Is that not fucking amazing? That is a long list of people. And I did skip Sarah because Sarah is our current Witchblade user. How they're going to do her currently, I don't know, because this is a reboot, so they can really just do whatever they want to at that point. She just went up against Aphrodite 4 and got her ass beat. So, again, I don't know. But she's ready to fight her for round 3. So, you know, we'll see. Or round 4, whichever round this is this time. So we'll see about that. I also didn't do Kenneth Irons, Gerard, or Ian Nottingham because they're not women. Women's History Month, okay? So I really enjoy all of these different Witchblade users, mainly because they all use the Witchblade in different ways, but it was always kind of the same thing that they were doing, which was essentially defending themselves or defending their people or whatever, what have you. And it kind of really shows like the backbone of like every civilization, which the women were there to, you know, bear the Witchblade. It was in defense of something. The only one I would say doesn't necessarily fit that mold would be Raquel, because hers was over a man. Girl, stand up. You know what I'm saying? Your husband is cheating on you with a goddess. Just leave it alone. She could have had all kinds of power and all kinds of things, to be perfectly honest. I feel like Bastet would have just been like, girl, bye, just go. I don't know. There probably are more Witchblade users, more past Witchblade users, but as of like just kind of the list of Witchblade users, because they did have a book where they were talking about Witchblade users, like past ones, I'm pretty sure this is like a complete list. And it's really fun to see all of the different abilities, because there are people who, like Queen Kajani, who is able to defend her entire country without needing an army. But then there's also Kaylee, who's going up against Wolverine. You know what I'm saying? But then it's kind of just like, it depends on the user. It's kind of like Dr. Fate, where the power that you get from the helmet and your relationship with Nobu is like, it's how your power is, which is why fuck, I don't know why I keep trying to say Carter Hall. That is not that man's name. Shit, what is his name? Fuck. Kent Nelson. Jesus. Anyway, it's kind of like how Kent Nelson is pretty much like the best user of the helmet. Sarah Pazzini, I think, is probably the best user of the Witchblade, as she's had it the longest and done the most. And it's always interesting to see how the Witchblade through history kind of just moved around and chose really, really powerful women of the time. I feel like Joan of Arc probably had it the second longest, because that's the only one that had years on it. And so, but she used hers for several different things, leading battles and things like that. So, and then she just ended up disappearing, kind of like, not like other people where they were killed with their during their usage of the Witchblade or anything like that, or they gave the Witchblade away, or it kind of just disappeared. She disappeared with it. You know what I'm saying? So I would love for, because Image owns like the Witchblade stories right now, so I would love for Image to kind of bring that back, even if you do like one shots for each one of them, or if you do kind of just like a mini series of a few of them, like ones who have like those really intricate stories. So Queen Kajani, and Bonnie, Joan of Arc, Roxanne LaRocque, the Musketeer, even any of the future ones. Selena, the one who reminds me of fucking Minority Report. Any of those, I think that would just be really, really fun. How they're doing with Witchblade right now is actually really cool, because she's run into another girl who can help her. Her name is not Danielle or anything like that, but I feel like they're probably going to end Danielle. She just, like I said, she just went up against Aphrodite 4, and they're about to have another rematch. So how they're doing the story right now for the Witchblade is really cool. And then Darkness, the Darkness also actually started, and her relationship with Jackie Estacado is not really a relationship so much as it is kind of just like a situationship, and it's barely even that. She helped him, he helped her, then she helped him, and he helped her again. You know what I'm saying? So they're definitely going to end up having more interactions, I believe. And I believe at one point, when she got pregnant, it was his. because they are together on like within the picture. I'm pretty sure it ended up being his baby. So I'm interested to see how that goes, because I also love the idea of her and Ian Nottingham being together. So you know, that's just me. But you know, what do you guys like? Which one would be your favorite? Who would you want to see? Things like that. Also, my book Blood Tide comes out tomorrow. I'm super excited. You can order it on Amazon, and it's the sequel to Salt Blood. So if you haven't gotten Salt Blood, please do. You can also get Midnight Whispers as well. So there'll be 3 books on there for you to choose from, and you can also follow my author page, because there are 2 more books for the Tidebound Legacy series. And I'm super excited for people to read these. So that is it for this episode of The Doctor's Office. And thank you for staying as long as you did. If you stayed this long, hit, you know, subscribe, like the video, share it around. Happy birthday to me. Bye.